You cannot control whether you're on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. If that is the outcome that you're focused on, then that's not good, because you have no control of that. There's so many things you can control. I mean, people always have all this like nonsense about why they want to be on the cover. I get this all the time. People are often telling me about how much they want to be on the cover. It's a lifetime goal to be on the cover. And then of course they give me like all these explanations that have nothing to do with ego, because I want to inspire other people and because I want to show people that anybody can do it and blah, blah, blah. Right? No, it's like, it's ridiculous. It's because you want to be on the cover of a magazine, and that's fine. Everybody who's on the cover of Entrepreneur, I'm sure, wanted to be on the cover of Entrepreneur. No, I've never forced anybody to be on the cover of Entrepreneur. The point of this is that for her, there are lots of other ways to achieve the things that she said she wants to achieve. You want to be inspiring to other people? Go do it. You want to lift people up? Go do it. You want to build an amazing brand? Go do it.
Welcome to Big Energy. I'm your host, Kassi Underwood, here to give you a dose of that good energy and talk with people who do it best. Each week, I bring you the knowledge we need to be the forces of nature we came here to be. We have something new today on the show, my friends. It is, drumroll please, a man! My next guest is Jason Feifer, who you may know as the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, host of 2 podcasts, Problem Solvers and Build for Tomorrow, book author, keynote speaker, startup advisor, and nonstop optimism machine. He is also my dear friend. His goal is to help you become more resilient and adaptable in a world of constant change, so you can seize new opportunity before anybody else does. He's an incredible friend and human being, and I'm so excited that you'll get to know him better here. We talk about everything from his morning routine to how to not let social media take over your life, how to protect your time, making what feels like risky changes in your business, and what all the most famous disruptors and futurists he's ever profiled for Entrepreneur Magazine share in common. You guys are going to love this. Jason, welcome to Big Energy. How are you?
I'm so great. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. And I have to give you a very special congratulations because you are the first man on my podcast.
Amazing. I am totally honored. I forge a new path for us all.
You do. You forge a path for all men.
Well, that's good. I don't know that I'm ready to be Adam in this whole saga here, but I guess you deal with the circumstances as they are. So here I am. I hope I represent everyone well.
I have no doubt. All right. So Jason, you are incredibly busy. You have an amazing, talented wife, 2 big energy kids. You're editor-in-chief of an international magazine. You're a host of 2 podcasts. You're an international public speaker, the author of a forthcoming book in 2022, Build for Tomorrow.
Yep.
What the hell is your morning routine and how do you make this work? What do your days look like?
Well, my morning routine is not very special at all. Jim Quick, who's a world-renowned brain coach who I just put on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine, stresses this whole philosophy, which I think is a very good one, that focus is a muscle and that you have to work it out, and that every time that you are working out the distraction muscle, you are counter-programming your focus muscle. And I wish that I could say that I follow his morning routine, which is don't look at the phone, make your bed, brush your teeth with the non-dominant hand so that it keeps you focused on the... I do absolutely none of that. I don't have time for that. My alarm clock is a 2-year-old. I wake up whenever he starts going. Shortly thereafter, the 6-year-old is going to burst into the room and I have a million things that I got to do and check in on. So what's my morning routine? It's literally just trying to get through the morning. There is no morning routine, you know? The one thing that I try to do is... I've been making a really heavy push into posting daily on Instagram and LinkedIn. So I often try to accomplish at least most of that in the morning before the kids get out the door. So there's usually a nice lull around like 7:30-ish when the kids have their food and they're watching their videos and I have maybe 15 minutes. And that's when I'll sit down and try to like bang out a LinkedIn post and get it up. That's it. That's the extent of the routine. But once the kids are out of the house, then I will tell you the important decision that I make, which is that I try to carve out the first hour to 2 hours of the day for writing, for the focused, deep work that's going to require my fullness, my full brain, my full creativity, because I know that later in the day I'm going to be burned out and I'm not going to be as fast. And so I try to make the morning about creation and then the afternoon about management.
So in the morning, you write your book.
Yes. The way that I have written a book, I mean, this is perhaps a nice lesson for folks. I know that not everyone's going to have this exact circumstance, but I have a lot going on as it is. I have a lot of deadlines that I'm constantly trying to meet between running Entrepreneur Magazine and the podcasts and dealing with managing all these other things. And then how on earth was I supposed to fit writing a book into this? And the answer is, I said to myself, I will devote an hour every morning to this book. That's it. Just an hour. More if I can get it. Probably can't. And if I need to take breaks for other projects, then I will. But as best I can, the default is there an hour in the morning to work on this book? And that is how I've written the book. That's it. It doesn't take much, right? You can do a lot with a little. You just have to do a lot of a little.
Okay, so good. I have 2 questions about this.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you refocus yourself after being on social media? Because I know a lot of people, they go to social media and once they've touched social media for the day, their brain is toast. They can't stop the addiction. They're off to the races.
First of all, this could take us down a rabbit hole, which I'm going to let you just choose your own adventure, Kassi, whether you want to go down this or not, which is that I will push back on the word addiction. I don't think that people are addicted to technology.
I listened to the episode, yes.
So yes. So we can dig into that if you want. But you're right, it's a distraction. It's a distraction, and it can be for people a bad habit, and they can overuse it. There's a big difference between addiction and overuse, and let's not forget that. But you're right, that for some people, you can lose your day to scrolling. The simple answer is that you need to set limits for yourself. People who I know who have millions of followers on social media, for whom this is a big part of their day, are not on social media every minute of every day. It's too much. So Chriselle Lim is a great example. She's got million-something followers on Instagram, and she has 2 half-hour blocks during her day, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And that's when she looks at Instagram. She's not scrolling around or just like looking what everybody's posting. She's doing something strategic. She's going on and she's responding to DMs and whatever you're managing, whatever she has to do. But that's it. She doesn't look at it outside of those times. So that's really valuable if you can do that. But a more philosophical answer is, I think that you should be asking of every single thing that you do this question that sounds so basic and simple that it's going to be stupid, but it's important. And the question is, what is this for? Because you should have an answer. And the answer might be different than what you think it is, and the answer might change over time. What is this for? So I will give you an example that's a little businessy, but is the way that I came to this question, and hopefully it can help you understand how to apply it anywhere else. I get asked all the time what I think the future of media is, because I've spent my career in traditional media, and of course, media is changing so much. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I came to this realization. And the realization is that if you ask the question, what is content for? Well, I can tell you what, for a magazine, content was for the majority of the time that magazines have existed. And that is that content is for monetizing. You sell ads against the content, you sell subscriptions. That's what it's for. But that's not the case anymore. And the reason for that is because it's harder to sell advertisements and it's harder to sell subscriptions. So what is content for? Well, it is still for something, I can assure you, as you've learned right now, because you should have the same answer for your own content, for your own podcast. It's for relationships. That's what it's for. And how do you build a business off of relationships? Well, pretty easy. Relationships build trust, and then people are willing to pay you for products and services that build upon and serve and respect that trust. And so to me, the future of media has to be that content is not the thing that we think about monetizing. Content is the thing that we think about creating relationships based off of. People trust us because of the content. And then we find products and services that they'll buy because of that trust. So now take that same question and apply it to social media. What is this for? Have an answer to that question. I'll tell you what it's for me. What it's for me is it's for building my brand. It's for making sure that I am creating constant touch points for people so that they feel like I'm there for them, that they can reach me, that I'm accessible, that I'm paying off on everything that I'm promising them, which is that I'm going to be full of ideas and optimism, and I'm going to be the kind of person who's there to help them during the day. But what is it not for? It's not for wasting my day on, and frankly, it's not for me even caring about what other people are posting. I don't care what other people are posting. I don't care about it at all. I just care if somebody's DM'd me. That's it. So once you have an answer to the question, what is it for? It really helps you focus everything. Ask it of everything that you do. What is it for? And if you don't have a good answer for it, well, then figure out what the answer is, or maybe stop doing it.
For me, at least, I don't need more than an hour or 2 30-minute periods to get that done in a day. I definitely don't need to be popping and checking back in throughout the day in order to be functional in those relationships. Yeah. So that's really good advice. The next question is, a lot of people set out with the best of intentions to create an hour in their day to do this or that, to create something for their future. And they just have something pop in, like their kid starts crying or something happens, right? They get a phone call and day in, day out, don't set the routine up. So were you immediately successful in setting up this routine for yourself with your book, or did it take you some time?
No, it took me some time. There's a big difference between deciding how you're going to spend your time and then living that. And I found that I would at first get a request for a meeting, for example, at the time in which I was generally blocking off. And then I would take that meeting, and then the whole day would go by and I would never get any work done on the book. And some meetings for me are easier to say no to than others. External requests for my time are obviously easier to say no to than internal requests where somebody at Entrepreneur, let's say the president of Entrepreneur, wants to meet me. But I would encourage you to hold boundaries and see what happens. Treat it as an experiment. I think sometimes we're afraid to do something because we feel like every decision that we make has to be permanent. But if you think of it as an experiment, you can learn something from an experiment. So here's a nice experiment. If I am saying that, I'm going to try to block off 9 to, let's be ambitious, 10:30. I'm going to block that time off. Nobody has that time except for me. And then the first time that my boss, who's at Entrepreneur, my boss is the president of Entrepreneur, asks to meet me at that time. Hey, can you hop on the call at 9:30? What would happen if I just say, I'm not available then? What about 10:30? What would happen? Would anything bad happen? I tried it. I will tell you, nothing bad happened. He said, okay, let's talk at 10:30. He doesn't know. He don't care. So once I do that and I discover that the world does not end, then I can do more of it. And then I can start saying no to literally everybody who asks for my time at that time. Everybody. Kassi, you didn't get that time. We're talking at 3 p.m. my time. I didn't give you the morning.
You didn't give me that.
I love you, and I still didn't give you the morning. So that's everybody. Also, I have a Calendly, which is such a valuable thing because then you eliminate all these emails back and forth forever and ever. My Calendly availability does not start until noon. I don't give anybody anything before. You can't book it. It's not available. And the more that you do this, the more that you'll block it off. Now, do things come up? Sure. Things come up. Your kids are not going to respect that schedule, and there's very little that you can do about that. And there's all sorts of life interruptions, and you have to be okay with that. Look, it's not any different from you decide that you're going to do cardio every day, and one day you fall off the wagon because something happened. Well, what do? Just do it tomorrow. It's fine. You missed a day. It's fine. I miss days all the time. But if I start every day with the goal, you know what? I don't start every day with the goal, because if I start every day with the goal, then I'm lost. I plan for the future with the goal. So it's not that I woke up today and I was like, oh, crap. I have a meeting on the calendar at 9 a.m. and I said that I was going to, it's lost, cause lost. No, instead, in the future, at every moment, when somebody asks you, can I meet you at 9:30? Can you go do this? No, the answer is no. It's just no. Here's the one thing that I do in the morning before I get ready for writing. I mean, I told you I try to get that LinkedIn post out when my kids are around, and then I will delete all the emails that are unnecessary. When I wake up, I have a million emails, and most of them are garbage. So I will clear out that inbox, which to me feels like psychically clearing out my mind. That also just helps me make sure like there's nothing really pressing waiting for me. There are no fires that need to be put out. And then I put it to the side. I actually literally switch the screen over to a different screen and I focus on the book and then I come back an hour and a half later or an hour, whatever I have.
Are you at inbox 0?
No, that's not possible. No.
No.
No, I'm not at inbox 0. What am I literally at right now? Let's look at my phone. Right now, I'm literally at inbox 119.
Great. I think that's really something to be proud of.
Well, thank you. Good. I try to keep it under 100, but we're in the middle of the day. Maybe I'll get there by the end of the day. To me, there are a lot of unopened emails that are things that I need to get back to later or stuff. Some of it's like a to-do list, I think of it. So I look at email and I'm like, what's new? And then what's calcified?
You recently changed your podcast title from The Pessimist Archive to Build for Tomorrow, which I definitely think has a bigger energy vibe, just my personal experience.
I agree.
Personal opinion. I love it. And one of your friends supplied the question, what would happen if this thing were successful? Which I love that question. And this is an amazing tool. I know in my own business that I always think like, how can I set this up so it can go 10 times the size it is right now?
Yeah.
10 times whatever it is. So can you tell us a little bit about that tool and how you used it?
Sure. So here's the setup. The setup is that I had this show, as you said, it was called Pessimist's Archive. And then I hired a consultancy named Pen Name Consulting. They've helped build the Tim Ferriss show. And they were hired to help me grow the brand, understand the audience better, et cetera, et cetera. They're run by old friends of mine, Jordan and Adam Bornstein. And one of their members on the team, Rochelle, did some research on my audience and came back with these really interesting insights. The two that were most earth-shaking for me were that, number one, the name was a barrier to entry. People didn't like it. They felt it was a turnoff. It was pessimistic. Obviously, it had the name pessimist, which I didn't think of because the name Pessimist Archive to me meant an archive of pessimists. That's what it was supposed to be. But, people didn't understand that. So the name was a turnoff. And even if they got over it and they started listening to the show, they would have trouble getting their friends to listen to the show. So it was just a giant barrier to entry. And then number two, I thought of the show at the time as kind of a history show, like a quirky history show. But people told the researcher that the reason that they listen to the show is because it helps them feel more optimistic about the future and more resilient about the future. And the show is not a conversation show. It's like a deeply researched, highly produced show where I tackle a big question about change. Why do people hate being told what to do? And how do you get them to change their behavior anyway? Is technology addictive or not? As we alluded to, the answer is no, it's not addictive. The idea is to understand how change happens and why people are afraid of change. And this was a really interesting insight to me. And so I stepped back and thought, I wonder if I need to make a massive change here and to change the name of the show. And that felt very scary because, of course, you set down on one path and you feel like you're investing everything in the one path that you're going on, and changing feels like an admission of failure in many ways. And you worry that you're going to confuse people, and you've built an identity around this brand. You spent so much time talking about it. I had a hat made, wearing the hat, and now you're going to make a change. What's that?
There's merch.
There's merch. There's sad merch that doesn't relate to anything anymore. I know. You know what I did to the Pessimist Archive hat? I dropped it off at like a Goodwill or something. Somebody else has that hat. Yeah.
You didn't want to keep it?
What am I going to do with it? I have a very utility view of things. Either I'm using it or I'm not. And I'm not wearing the hat anymore. So why would I keep the hat? It has a purpose in my life or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And this doesn't.
What is this for?
What is this for? Exactly. What is this for? It either is for my head or it's for nothing. There's no other reason to have a hat. So now apply that to literally everything in your life, because that's it. I mean, it would joke, but that's actually as simple as it should be. It either has a purpose or it does not. And so anyway, we made the change. It's a long story, but we made the change to Build for Tomorrow. And what you're driving at is afterwards, I had this conversation with my friend Adam, who co-founded Pen Name Consulting and has been involved in this every step of the way. He gave me this great piece of advice that he gives founders all the time, which he would have given me, I suppose, had I asked him if I should call the show Pessimist Archive years earlier. And that is, when you're starting something, to ask, what would happen if this is successful? We often ask, what would happen if this fails? But it's worth asking, what would happen if this is successful? Because things will change in the same way that things will change if it fails. Things will change if it succeeds too. And if you take it from my situation, what you have is a show with a name that made sense to a small audience because it was built off of a Twitter feed that was called Pessimist Archive. So people understood that. And then the second that it reached beyond the Twitter feed audience, people had no idea why it was called Pessimist Archive. It didn't make any sense to them at all. Had I thought at all what would happen if this is successful, I would have thought this is going to reach an audience of people that don't get it. Do I want to tie myself and define myself by a brand with the word pessimist in it? I don't think that I do, because that's not my brand and that's not me. But I didn't think that because it was a good solution at the time. This is something that everybody struggles with. I mean, I remember talking to this woman, Jennifer, who was the founder or co-founder of Policy Genius. It's like a company that helps you find insurance policies. That company launched with the name Know It Owl. No, K-N-O-W, I-T, Owl, A-O-W-L. Know It Owl. And she thought, well, it's fun. It's a pun on know it all, but it's an owl. Kassi, you get it? It's an owl.
That's how I get it.
You get it. It was a terrible name, but they launched with that name because it was cute and probably because they asked 10 friends if it was good and they all liked it. And they hadn't thought, what if this is successful? What if this reaches the larger marketplace? What if there's a story? What happens when we're sitting down with a major investment firm and they're thinking about putting a couple $1 million into Know It Owl? Can we do this with a straight face? Know It Owl? And so she had to make a change. She called it Policy Genius. They went through a whole process. And I think this is just really important at all steps that we should be thinking about this, because failure can be hard, but success is hard too. And success requires change. And I can tell you, and this is a lesson from entrepreneurship, but it's not limited to entrepreneurship, that when you are running a company and that company grows, it requires different things of you. And the greatest struggle that many entrepreneurs have is that they don't know how to put away the version of themselves that they used to be to figure out what they need to become to lead the next version of this company. They really struggle with that. And I think that we all struggle with that in every way. I mean, you could apply that to relationships too, right? Like the kind of boyfriend or girlfriend that you need to be is pretty different from the kind of husband or wife that you need to be. And you have to grow with the thing that you're involved in, which means that you have to really game it out. What happens if this is successful? You don't have to necessarily have an answer to that, but you should know if you have started with a foundation that you can grow upon.
If you're a bad bitch who's ready to create a massive shift into abundance and ease around money, I've got good news for you. I officially reopened the doors to my popular program, Money Metaphysics for Maverick Women. It's a 6-month group program where you receive direct guidance from me, live calls, instant access to my 13-module course, Big Money Energy, plus a 2-day in-person retreat and tons of other live support and content. Learn more about the program at kassiunderwood.com/MMMW. Check it all out now and register at kassiunderwood.com/MMMW. So why do you think it is that people choose names that are going to turn people off or that sort of thing? Like, I totally relate to that with my own brand, with so much of the work that I've done. It's just choosing the wrong titles or choosing too inside baseball or just things that don't work, hard to pronounce, hard for people to understand what I'm talking about.
I think that like anything, we are blinded by our own ideas. And we also have an expectation that people will just come around to our ideas. And sometimes they will. You can go out with a crazy idea and ultimately convince everybody of your correctness. But there are battles to fight and there are battles not to fight. And I think that sometimes something as simple as, is this communicating properly, is not a battle worth fighting. Just figure out how to communicate it properly. So I think answer number one is that people are trapped into their own ideas. I think number two, honestly, is that we don't often have a good understanding of who we're reaching when we start. I learned that with the podcast thing. I spend months making these episodes. I talk to all these historians and academics and whatever. I really thought of it originally as an intellectual pursuit. I didn't understand that people were experiencing it as a kind of self-help. That when they told me, why do you listen to the show? The answer is because it helps me feel more resilient about the future. That is a very personal reason. That is not an academic pursuit. That is because it's helping them change the way that they think. That didn't occur to me, and it wasn't even what I set out to do. And I think that it's fine that I didn't set out to do it or that it didn't occur to me, because you know what? The only way that you can ever get to an answer and realization like that is if you just start with something. You just create something, put it out in the world, see how people react to it, grow it from there. It's fine. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I put a minimum viable product out into the world. I just started. And it wasn't good, or it was okay, maybe, if I'm being generous. Maybe it was at least okay to start. And
really good. And it's
thanks.
Amazing. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think it's better now than it was before. But that's fine, because I have asked a version of this question, which is, how do people start? If you have an idea, if you want to explore something, how do you start? I've asked that of everybody. I've asked that of the most successful people in the world and the smartest academics. This is a question that I've asked because it's asked of me all the time, and I want to know if anybody ever has a different answer. And the answer is that nobody ever has a different answer than this. Just start. That's it.
Do it.
You just do it. Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, says you jump off the cliff and build the airplane on the way down. Everyone has a version of it, but the answer is you just start. And so that's what I did. I just started. So why don't people have a crisp understanding? Because they don't know how to see 5 steps ahead. And that's fine, because you don't need to see 5 steps ahead. What you need to do is have the fortitude to take 5 steps.
That's so good.
I just came up with that on the fly.
But it does sound good.
We're not into a quote card. That one's really good.
Jotting it down.
Put that on a Post-it.
It's going on Instagram.
Yes, definitely. So how does somebody find the fortitude?
That's a good question. How does somebody find the fortitude? First of all, you prove it to yourself. Ira Glass, who is the host of This American Life, has this wonderful phrase, which I will probably butcher, but let me do my best, which is that at the beginning of anything, there is a large gap between your taste and your abilities. And there are lots of versions of that quote out there. Ryan Reynolds said to obnoxiously name drop, Ryan Reynolds said to me, because I interviewed him for Entrepreneur Magazine, that if you want to be good at something, you have to be willing to be bad. But I really like the taste and the abilities thing because it puts it into perspective. Taste and abilities. Taste, you know what good looks like. You're a consumer of good. Abilities, you can't produce good. You just can't. At the start, you can't. I will tell you, as a guy who produces a lot of things that I hope people think are good, when I look back at my early versions of doing it, writing magazine articles, making podcasts, speaking, I was not good. I just wasn't. But what I had was a willingness to get past the bad. I remember, Kassi, standing on the side of a stage in Scottsdale, Arizona, as one does. I was being introduced to come on and give my very first ever keynote. It was a short one. I don't even know if you can call it a keynote. It was like 15 minutes. And I was opening up for Marcus Lemonis of CNBC's The Prophet. I was going to walk out on stage in this hotel ballroom in front of all these people in Scottsdale, Arizona, and talk to them for 15 minutes. And I had never, ever done anything like that. I had been on stage before, but always interviewing people, which was a lot more comfortable to me. I'd never just gone on and just talked like a wind-up doll. I didn't know how to do it, and I had never done it, and I had never done what I was going to say in front of anybody before, so I didn't know if anybody was going to like it. I practiced it in my hotel room the night before, but that was about it. And this guy is introducing me, and I'm thinking to myself, what can I tell myself right now that will get me on that stage? Because I do not feel like I belong on that stage, and I have absolutely no idea how it's going to go. And then these words popped into my head, and the words were this: I cannot wait to do this the second time. Cannot wait to do this the second time, which is a really helpful way to think.
That is so good.
Yeah, because you know what? the first time's a wash. Who cares? I just kept thinking, like, on the other side of this is so much information. On the other side of this experience I'm about to have, I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to have a sense of what worked and what didn't. I'm going to have a sense of what I was good at and what I wasn't. I know what good speaking looks like. I do not know if I'm going to stand on that stage and deliver good speaking. I have no idea. But I will know a lot more 15 minutes from now because I will have done it. And then I will learn, and then the second time is going to be a lot better. So your question is, how do you build the fortitude? And to me, the only answer is that you just go out and do it. You have to accept that you're not going to be that good at the start and that that's okay. Put it in a continuum. Make it a part of the journey. And once you do that, once you realize it's okay to have a gap between your taste and your abilities, it's okay to be bad at something on the road to being good at it. It's okay to do it the first time and suck, because think about the inherent logic of the phrase, I can't wait to do this a second time. The inherent logic is that there is a second time. And so, well, okay, let's just get through the first and then we'll get better from there.
So good. How did it go?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, we're always such bad judges of our own performances. I would say nobody booed me off stage. Marcus Lemonis looked me in the eye afterwards. He wasn't like ashamed to be near me. People came up to me and wanted to talk to me. That's good. I mean, I have seen people bomb on stage, and nobody wants to come near them afterwards because it's just too awkward. So I think it was okay. I mean, look, here's the thing. Also, the thing is that people don't know what your good looks like. When I go on stage, I am very confident. I feel like I'm really, really good at it because I've done it a lot and I've spent a lot of time practicing, and I have constant opportunities. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have constant opportunities to be on camera and on microphone and on stage, and I have honed it, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. So when I go up there, the way I think about it now is honestly like, these people have no idea what's coming. I am going to show them something they have not seen before. So that to me is what good looks like. Did I deliver upon that? No, there's no way I did that. But they don't know what I think good is. Maybe what they saw was perfectly fine. Maybe I was just as good as the last 5 speakers they saw. And, Kassi, I'm sure you've seen it yourself. A lot of bad speakers out there. And people still sit through it and they still listen and they're like, oh, okay, I guess that was okay. Right? So I don't know. It was fine. It was fine. But to me, it could have been a lot better. And then my job was just to make it better.
So good. So you have profiled some of the world's most famous disruptors and futurists. And I'm wondering if you've seen a trend or a unifying theme in the most massively impactful among these.
Sure. The answer is that the most successful and the most impactful people are exceptionally adaptable. That's it. They are willing to discard what worked yesterday. They do not care about what worked yesterday. They are only interested in what they are able to build now and what's coming next. When I met with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his business partner, Danny Garcia, they said to me, we don't care about process. We only care about outcome. I have heard versions of that from so many people.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Wait, keep going. Then I want to talk about that. So I read this in some of your work and I was like, oh my God, we have to talk so much about this.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's go.
Okay. So this is what is crazy about this to me. As somebody who's in the wellness world, the spirituality world, that sort of thing, there's a lot of focus on process. It's all about only focus on the process. Don't focus on the outcome. Don't get attached to the results. Don't get attached to the outcome. You have a few things that seem to be almost opposite the traditional philosophies in the wellness and spirituality world. So I thought it might be fun to try to reconcile these.
I'd love that. That sounds so fun because I don't know that much about the wellness and spirituality world. So
tell me about it.
Well, okay. So first of all, I think that we have to, like a good philosophy major, we have to define our terms. So what are we talking about in terms of outcome? I'll tell you what Danny and DJ were talking about. Fun fact that I didn't know before I met them is that everybody who knows Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson actually calls him DJ. So Danny and DJ were talking about, and that is that outcome to them means growth. DJ describes his goal. We talked a lot about what your core is, which we can do here if you want as well. I think it's a really important exercise to go through. But we talked a lot about what his core is and what my core is. And to him, he said he wants to be a 10-lane highway going through the world. And
what does that mean?
Well, what it means is that he doesn't want to have just one path. So, he started in football, and that didn't really work out. And then he really found his first success as a wrestler. You can be a successful wrestler. Then you are a 1-lane highway going through the world. All right. You're on one path and you do one thing. And that can be dangerous because, of course, that highway can end. So he wants to add highways. He wants to engage with people, to bring joy to people in as many possible ways as he can. And to push himself to constantly expand outside of whatever he thinks that he is. Malcolm Gladwell once told me that self-perceptions are powerfully limiting. And I think that that is exceptionally true. And so DJ wants to be a 10-lane highway going through the world. And to him and to Danny, his business partner, their success is measured off of, are they bringing joy to people? There are a lot of different ways that you can do that. They make movies, but they make lots of other things too. And so that's the outcome. The outcome is not hyper-specific. That would be bad. You could define your success way too narrow. Here's a nice example. I was on Clubhouse and people were asking me questions. And then this woman asks, she's like, when you first came into this room, I started crying because it has been my lifelong goal to be on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. And now I'm going to tell you all about myself. And now she was like, this is my moment to get on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. And she just went, she started telling me all about herself. And eventually I said, look, congratulations on your journey. You've succeeded in many ways. Please do not define success for yourself based on something that you cannot control. You cannot control whether you're on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. If that is the outcome that you're focused on, then that's not good because you have no control of that. There's so many things you can control. I mean, people always have all this like nonsense about why they want to be on the cover. I get this all the time. People are often telling me about how much they want to be on the cover. It's a lifetime goal to be on the cover. And then of course they give me like all these explanations that have nothing to do with ego because I want to inspire other people and because I want to show people that anybody can do it and blah, 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 right? No, it's like, it's ridiculous. It's because you want to be on the cover of a magazine. And that's fine. Everybody who's on the cover of Entrepreneur, I'm sure, wanted to be on the cover of Entrepreneur. No, I've never forced anybody to be on the cover of Entrepreneur. The point of this is that for her, there are lots of other ways to achieve the things that she said she wants to achieve. You want to be inspiring to other people? Go do it. You want to lift people up? Go do it. You want to build an amazing brand? Go do it. Being on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine is not the make or break moment for any of that stuff. Go do it. To go back to this question that you have about outcome, and now I'd be very interested to hear what you mean and what I guess the word outcome means in your world. When DJ and Danny say that they don't concern themselves with process, they only concern themselves with outcome, they have a vision in mind. That vision is to be a 10-lane highway moving through the world, bringing joy to people. And it does not matter how they're accomplishing that because there are a million ways to accomplish that. So if one thing worked last year and it stopped working, fine, pivot, do something else. And that I think is a very powerful thing because at that point, you are working towards an outcome that is totally in your control. A 10-lane highway going through the world, what does that mean? It means whatever they want it to mean. So they will continue to figure out how to achieve that. And they are not going to anchor themselves to one way of doing it.
Okay, so they're actually already quite reconciled, especially if the goal is being a 10-lane highway, which is a way of being and creating the impact of joy on the world. That's very reconciled with what the philosophy would be in the spirituality world and the wellness world. Gandhi says the ends are in the means. The outcome of whatever we're doing is embedded with the vibration with which we're doing it. Essentially, if we're doing something out of joy, we're going to create joy. We don't want to focus on some kind of outcome of getting on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine because the road that might take you there might be full of pain in torment. And by the time you're going to get there, it might not even feel that inspiring to you. You know, it might feel like an old hat. So just focusing on where you are, being in the present moment, being focused on, I think, creating an impact, being like a good person, you know, and not from the like virtue signaling kind of way, but having a genuine heart about something. So that feels pretty reconciled to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it comes down to, are you defining yourself narrowly or broadly? And I think that people get in trouble when they define themselves very narrowly because you are limiting all the other great potential options for yourself and for the outcome of your work.
Well, this surprises me also because we're told with branding, really narrow your focus and only speak to one person and that sort of thing. So how do you reconcile those two?
Well, I think because you need to know who you're speaking to and what your message is and see if it works. When people talk about narrowing your focus on branding, that is a matter of being really crisp about your message. But like I said earlier, we take actions, and I think that sometimes we are concerned about doing something because we feel like it's permanent. But if we treat everything like an experiment, then narrowing your focus is a matter of seeing if something works. And if it does, great, lean into it, figure out how you can expand. If not, move on to something else. I mean, how many companies have started by speaking to one audience, and then once they connected with that audience, they figured out how to grow from there? You don't have to stop just because you focused, but you do have to know who you're talking to. And you have to know how they speak, because if you try to speak to everybody, you literally speak to nobody. So you have to narrow in some way, but you have to at the same time be thinking about what else you could be. As I've gotten into complex conversations with people and try to engage in ideas that might feel uncomfortable, like, for example, technology is not addictive, that I find myself saying this phrase over and over again. I literally said it to Jen, my wife, your old friend, like yesterday, which was both can be true. Both can be true. I think in so many cases, we try to limit ourselves to one truth about something, but both can be true. You can narrow your focus and speak to one audience while at the same time plan to speak to many audiences. Both can be true. I think that's just the case in a lot of this kind of stuff, where you have to start somewhere. You have to be smart about it. If you try to do too much, you're going to do absolutely nothing. And so while you're doing that, you have to be open to the possibility that what you're doing might be incorrect, or that it might be the smaller part of a larger opportunity that you won't discover until you figure this smaller part out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that for me, at least, so much of what I've learned about entrepreneurship or just living as a successful person in the world is the ability to hold two seemingly, contradictory ideas together at the same time, be doing two things at once, have a goal, but also be invested in my present moment, constantly practicing two things, having a brand that's focused on one thing with the potential for offering multiple things.
I think of it in so many ways, large and small, as have a plan to abandon the plan.
I love it.
You need both.
So let's finish by talking about your book, Build for Tomorrow. What can we expect? What can you tell us about it?
Well, so thanks for asking. So you can expect to not see it for a while because it comes out next year. I haven't even turned it in yet. I haven't seen a cover. I haven't seen anything. But anyway, I've been working on it for a while. So it's called Build for Tomorrow. And the idea starts off with this. I came to this realization as I watched people move through COVID, that moments of great change and moments of crisis, large or small, personal or global, people move through 4 phases. Those 4 phases are this: panic, adaptation, new normal, wouldn't go back. Wouldn't go back is the most important. It's actually the whole point of the thing. It's funny. I was talking to somebody a while ago and they were like, panic is fun. Adaptation and new normal are kind of boring sounding. Should you spice those up? And I was like, no, because they're the boring parts of the journey. Like, the most exciting part is wouldn't go back. The whole reason is wouldn't go back. What is wouldn't go back? Well, look, wouldn't go back is not to discount any loss or tragedy from COVID or anything else, but it is to say that if we all look at our own journeys, we will find this, that at the end of a great transition, we discover something, we build something, we create something new, something that we wouldn't have considered before. And it's so valuable to us, to the way that we think about ourselves or the way that we think about our business, that we wouldn't want to go back to a time before we had it. And that's the payoff of wouldn't go back. And so every moment of great change, personal or otherwise, I think that our goal has to be to get to wouldn't go back and to help other people to get to wouldn't go back. And so I started to think, well, how can I do that? What are the lessons that I've learned and the insights, and what are the things that can drive acceptance of the change and an excitement of knowing that on the other end of this is something that is so valuable that you will one day not be able to imagine your life without it. And I've met so many people who have gone through this, and I've collected these stories from history that have changed the way that we think about ourselves and our culture, and then at the same time zeroed into the way that somebody just revised their business or their life. And it's all about wouldn't go back. So that's the point of the book, is to get people there.
I cannot wait to read that. It really resonates. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people who are listening. So where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at jasonfeifer.com, where if you click on the free training button, you will be able to download a free audio course that I've created on how to become more adaptable, start to get to wouldn't go back. Actually, it has the steps towards how to identify your core, which we had kind of briefly talked about earlier. Also, we've talked about Build for Tomorrow, the podcast, a little bit, so feel free to check that out. I would love if you did. And then feel free to DM me on Instagram at @HeyFeifer. I will respond.
Yay. I have to say that the free training is incredible. I did it. I love it.
Oh, thanks.
Check it out. Yes, absolutely. Jason, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Kassi. I hope that I have opened the door for other men to bravely join your big energy.
Oh, so many men will follow in your path. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
That was another episode of Big Energy with me, your host, Kassi Underwood. Were you into it? Go ahead and click the subscribe button and leave a review. You can also find me online at KassiUnderwood.com. See you next time. And remember, Money Metaphysics for Maverick Women, my 6-month program, is open for enrollment. Learn more and register at KassiUnderwood.com/MMMW.